The wind is gentle, the moon bright. Not a sound stirs in the ocean of wilderness. The untamed country sleeps in silence, awaiting sunrise. The night is quiet. The boy's sleep, however, is riddled with whimpers, despair, and sweat. He sleeps in a butcher's boy's tent, for it is much larger than the tent his stepmother gave him, and they sleep in shifts anyway. By the time it is his turn to rest, the kid's mind has been eaten away by exhaustion. All he notices as he crawls into the sleeping bag is the faint smell of urine from the corner of the tent. The kid does not care. His tired limbs, like dead weights, drag him down into the darkness. Aches dull to numbness, and numbness gives way to sleep. Muscles relax, and breath slow. At first the boy's body slumbers fully, trying to recapture all the energy it had spent on the journey. As the minutes turn into hours, however, the child's mind awakens steadily and tries to make sense of the day past. His eyes shift between his eyelids to the tune of vague dream. Sweat beads across the boy's back as the vapors of his imagination torment him. He whimpers and shakes and dreams of things terrible. It is in the midst of nightmare that he is woken. He is shaken awake. In the twilight of the tent, the boy can scarcely tell the face apart. Still half trapped in sleep, the boy's fists rise in defense. "They're friends," the voice in the dark says, shaking him further. It's the butcher's boy. He's being shaken by the butcher's boy, and he's in a tent, and the visions of incomprehensible horror of his dreams pale in the gentle rays of light peering through the tent flap. "Don't do that again," the kid says, shoving off the butcher's boy. "I was sleeping." "Sorry," the boy says. "Just got really excited. They're friends now. It's so neat." "Who's friends?" "Rexina and your Zaprat. Come look." The kid is already crawling out of the tent when he hears the hound's name. He moves with urgency. All too vividly, he can imagine a beast tearing at the neck of his Zaprat. When he peers out of the tent, however, he sees the two hybrids sitting by the fire. They do not seem to be particularly amicable, but they seem capable of coexisting. "Friends," the kid says. The moment he speaks, the Zaprat leaps up from its spot by the fire and scampers into the lone tree. It stops on one of the lower branches. From there, it watches the kid with its big, mysterious eyes. "Came down from the tree while I was eating," the butcher's boy says, climbing out of the tent with his soiled shorts in hand. "Was scared that Rexina would, well, you know. But I didn't have to even say anything. They just sniffed at each other and then, boom, they're friends." The butcher's boy lays his shorts by the fire to dry. The kid flicks out his HC device, aiming it at the tree. But the moment the Zaprat hears the whir, it scampers higher. The kid clicks his thumb a couple times to no avail. He sighs. The child's frustration comes out as a puff of steam. The morning is cold, and the grass beneath his feet is covered in crystals of frost. In a muddy meadow below lie 6 gooblers, deflated, leaking, and dead. At the bottom of the hill, covered in a thin layer of frost, stands the butcher's boy's captured goobler. Its big, drooping eyes are closed, but it still wobbles gently from foot to foot. Even its 2 mouths seem to be pantomiming screams as the creature sleeps. "Left him down there to keep us safe," the butcher's boy says, adding another twig to the fire and scratching his hound behind the ear. "Figured if someone came, it would start screaming, wake us up and everything." The kid looks at the dead hybrids in the meadows. He has no love for the strange creatures, yet their corpses are gruesome and undignified. For a moment he considers asking the butcher's boy if he feels bad about killing them. But he does not. The kid simply sits by the fire and warms his shivering hands. "I think maybe today we should try traveling without the bomb," the butcher's boy says, prodding the fire. "A real hybrid trainer doesn't shy away from battle. It's battle that makes hybrids strong." The wood in the fire cracks and sparks, and the wind changes direction. The kid says nothing. "What do you think?" the butcher's boy asks. You do what you want to do, the kid says, trying to wring some warmth from his fingers. I would like some of the balm, though, if you'll share. Disappointment crosses Massimo's face for a split second, but then it is replaced by his usual smile. Okay, he says, taking the balm out of his backpack. If you're gonna wear the balm, I'll wear the balm. Better safe than hurt. The boys rest around the fire until the sun fully climbs to the horizon. For breakfast, the butcher's boy produces a can of spiced ham. When he's halfway done with his meal, he passes the rest of the can to the kid. The kid does not argue. The kid is hungry. They consult the map that the butcher boy traced from the professor's laboratory. The drawing is poor, but if the map is to be trusted, the boys are on the right path. Beyond the sea of grass, there is a forest, and beyond that forest is a mountain range. Beyond that mountain range, there is still a day of travel left through the steppe, but beyond the steppe lies their destination, Gorod Palma. As the butcher's boy packs up his tent, the kid traces the map into his notebook. He takes care drawing the borders of the academic empire and includes the 2 islands with the lone trees on his rendition of the land. When the boys are finally ready to depart, the Zaprat refuses to leave the tree. I don't think he likes being in the HC device, the butcher's boy says, scratching his hybrid behind the ear. I don't think anybody likes it there. When the boys descend to retrieve the goobler at the bottom of the hill, the Zaprat is still in the tree. When the purple mammoth is back in the butcher's boy's bracelet and the children are ready to depart, however, the Zaprat climbs down and watches from the hill. As the boys continue on their journey towards Gorod Palma, the electric rat follows cautiously at a distance. The grass stretches above them much like it did the day prior, but time passes quicker. All along the way, the kid flicks his HC device in and out of his palm and only takes breaks to turn around to see if the Zaprat is still following. The creature always stands at a distance, but it never leaves the trail. Around midday, when the sun shines above the boys and provides them the gentlest moments of warmth, the grass starts to descend. The height of the leaves above them ebbs and flows as the path stretches on, yet, little by little, the nature above the boy relents. Trees start to dot the side of the road, at first mere saplings, but as the boys journey further, the trees grow mature and strong. As the boys approach the first large tree, one which shields the path from the sun even in midday, the Zaprat rushes past them. The kid tries to capture the hybrid in his HC device, but it moves far too quickly. When it reaches the tree, it scampers up to the lowest branch, sits down, and watches the kid. With each tree the boys pass, the process repeats. When the grass finally gives and the boys are walking through a forest, the Zaprat hops from branch to branch above them. It keeps on watching the kid. There's no malice in the hybrid's eyes, nor is there any friendship. The creature watches the child with the eyes of a wild animal, which lives in a world wholly incomprehensible to man. As the Zaprat watches the kid, the child watches back. He watches back and hopes that the creature considers him a friend. So, why did your dad run away? The butcher's boy asks, casually, as they walk through the edges of the forest towering above them. He didn't run away, the kid says. Oh? The kid walks on. His eyes fall to his feet. He was kidnapped, the boy finally says. Kidnapped? Asks the butcher's boy. By who? The kid doesn't look up. He just puts one foot in front of the other and flicks the HC device in and out. The butcher's boy speeds up to a light jog to keep up with the kid. He holds his right wrist cradled by his abdomen as the weight of his HC device sways him to the side, but he keeps up pace. Who kidnapped your dad? I don't want to talk about him. Oh, the butcher's boy says. Okay. The wind above them whistles through the trees, and the rustling of leaves is soon joined by the chirping of birds. The forest around them grows darker and full of life. Sticks crack in the woods beyond, and down through the bush the occasional sight of rabbit ears can be caught. The butcher's boy's hound sniffs at the trees and occasionally marks territory, and the kid's Zaprat leaps from branch to branch above. The flicking of the HC device keeps the kid occupied for a good while, but eventually his mind starts to grow numb. The memory of the dead vine fur is still far too fresh in a kid's mind, but he finds himself wishing that the butcher's boy would make another attempt at conversation. He doesn't. He just walks behind the kid and occasionally calls out to his hound. The kid thinks of something to talk about. He ponders hard for something to ask, and just as he thinks he has it, just when he becomes comfortable with Mesomel being his friend, the butcher's boy shoves him in the chest. The kid meets the ground with a muddy slap. "Mummer!" the butcher's boy yells. The kid is knocked off balance, and his face is full of mud and moss, but he quickly understands. Just where he was about to step a moment ago, the foliage twists and turns. 1,000 eyes stare at the boy from a glob of grey flesh. Thick and droopy lips form spit-filled sounds. "Mwah, mwah, mwah." The burn bark is quick to rush towards the creature, but the butcher's boy stops it with a raised fist. The hound steps from paw to paw in fiery anticipation, but it heals. "Sorry," Mesomel says, helping the kid up to his feet. "Barely noticed it myself." "It's okay," the kid replies. "Do you want this one?" the butcher's boy asks. "To fight?" "Yeah, gotta train the Zaprat if we want to make it past Goropalma." Big wild eyes stare down at the kid from the branches above. The child points towards the eldritch mass of shrubbery and dead flesh writhing near his feet. The electric rat's gaze is singular. "Zap it," the kid orders. "Attack." The hybrid does not attack. It does not look away from his trainer. The kid makes a couple more futile attempts at coaxing the electric rat into battle, but he makes them to no avail. "You fight it," the kid finally says. "Don't worry, we'll figure out a way to train your Zaprat." The burn bark makes quick work of the mummer. He gnaws and barks and bites and shakes the grey glob of flesh in his frothing jaws until all the sticks and twigs have fallen from its body. As the shrub-covered hybrid teeters on the edge of life and death, the butcher's boy calls back his hound. He asks the kid if he wants to capture the mummer. The kid says no. Mesomel shrugs and starts making his way down the path. The kid watches the inhuman creature writhe and mumble on the forest path. Above him, the Zaprat watches as well. "You ain't gonna capture him?" the kid asks. "Don't need more dead weight. Already have the goobler." "Well, leave the goobler and take this one. It can spit poison." "Didn't spit any poison at you." "I saw it spit poison back in the laboratory." The butcher's boy takes out his H-Dex and listens to the entry. "You're right," he says. "It says it's poisonous." "Well, then don't let it die." "Nah. Hand's already heavy enough as is." "Then release the goobler. It's a waste of space. It just screams." "What if it'll be useful?" "It won't be." "You never know." The creature at their feet groans, oozing a pungent-smelling yellow pus into the mud. The kid can't look at it. "Can you at least kill it?" "Why?" the butcher's boy asks. The kid struggles to put his reply into words. Everything he wants to say sounds silly and stupid. His brain flushes through a dozen reasons to kill the creature until he settles on one. "I don't like the sound that it's making." Mesomel shrugs and calls his burn bark back from a tree it was smelling. The moment he says the word kill, the crimson flabs of flesh on the back of the hound's back rise and start to flutter. With a groan, the creature releases a burst of flames. The mummer quickly goes silent. All that is left of it is a piece of charred ash surrounded by flames and a smell of burnt meat. The butcher's boy watches the charred corpse for a bit and then reaches for his water bottle. He unscrews the lid and pours the little water that is left onto the flames. "What are you doing?" the kid yells.
Putting out the fire. If the forest burnt down, we'd be in big trouble.
We could have peed on it. You don't have any more water.
But I have the water tablets my dad gave me,
the butcher's boy says, screwing the lid back onto the water bottle.
Just need to find a stream or something.
Where? The kid asks. Massimo shrugs.
There ought to be one somewhere, right?
The forest around them is lush and green and healthy, yet there is no trace of water. As the boys walk down the forest path, the kid stops playing with his HC device. He listens. He listens to the forest, praying that somewhere beneath the chirping of the birds and rustling of twigs, he'll hear the bubbling of a brook. He does not. As the duo walk with their hybrids in tow, no source of water presents itself. The butcher's boy smacks his lips. Images of sucking at moss and drinking from muddy puddles start to bite away at the kid, but the butcher's boy seems completely calm. He walks and smacks his lips, and just when the sound starts to drive the kid crazy, he unpacks 2 sticks of jerky from his backpack and passes one to the kid.
You want some?
Massimo says, sucking at his teeth. Yeah, the kid says. Thanks.
What's mine is yours, friend.
The butcher's boy swallows his snack in 4 swift bites. The kid savors it like a mouse nibbling on winter stores. The kid eats his jerky methodically and, in a similarly meticulous way, his Zaprat descends from the trees. The electric vermin climbs closer and closer to the kid as he eats. When there's just a single bite of meat left, the Zaprat is down on the path with the boys. For a moment, the hybrid's big eyes lose their singular point of focus. They shift from the boy to the meat in his hand. You want the rest of this? The kid asks. The Zaprat doesn't answer. It simply stares at him. The kid is still hungry, and the meat he got from the butcher's boy is far too good to be left to a rat. The hybrid's big wild eyes, however, give the child pause. He reaches into his backpack and breaks off a chunk of the rancid meat his stepmother gave him. He places it in his hand and extends it to the Zaprat. With lightning speed, the creature leaps at the boy's hand, snatches the meat with its little paws, and then scampers up the nearest tree. It's only once it is safe in the branches that the hybrid nibbles at the meat. It is only once the hybrid is eating that the kid finishes off the jerky he has left. The butcher's boy smacks his lips again.
I'm thirsty,
he says. Shouldn't have emptied out your water, the kid replies. The butcher's boy smacks his lips again.
There ought to be some water nearby,
he says.
I'm really thirsty.
The kid thinks of all the things that the butcher's boy shared with him. The jerky, the cans of meat, the bomb, the tent. He knows his own water bottle is running low, but he also knows he is indebted to the child. You want some of my water? The kid asks.
Would that be okay?
The jerky has done the child no favors. The words burn in the back of the kid's parched throat. They burn and they don't want to come out, but he says them regardless. What's mine is yours, friend. The butcher's boy drinks 3 long, greedy gulps and hands back a bottle that's nearly empty.
Don't worry,
Massimo says, his smile genuine and without any trace of malice.
We'll find some water soon, and we'll use those tablets my dad gave me.
They walk and walk and walk until the trees steal away what little warmth the sun provides. A familiar exhaustion seeps back into the boy's legs. Each step he takes is accompanied with steadily sharpening pins and needles that eat away at the child's feet. Along with the pain in his extremities, along with the dryness in the child's throat, a headache starts to hatch behind the kid's eyes. The branches and leaves above block out the sky completely. Only faint rays of dim greenish light make it down towards the children. The birds in the trees go silent. The wind rasps down to a whisper. All that can be heard is the boy's footsteps, an occasional cracking of twigs off the path. Can we drink blood? The kid asks.
What blood?
the butcher's boy says.
Animal blood, like a rabbit or something. Why would we drink blood?
If we don't find any water.
We will find water. There's gonna be a stream somewhere around here.
How do you know? The butcher's boy shrugs. His face is completely void of worry. The shrubbery around the boy grows more plentiful and thick. Much like the sea of grass, the dark bushes and clumps of moss start to consume all that is not on the path. Slowly, ever so slowly, new sounds sliver into the ambience of the forest. Barks and shouts and roosts of inhuman creatures drift into the air. On occasion, the butcher's boy's burn bark stops and growls off into the forest in anticipation of battle. In dark forest, however, even Messamel feels unsafe. Sometimes it takes more than one order to get the hound to move, but the boys never stay in one spot for too long. They walk and walk and walk, and the socks in the kid's shoes start to turn wet. He hopes that it's simple sweat, but the stinging pain which follows each footfall convinces him otherwise. The headaches, the bleeding feet, the thirst, it all weighs upon the boy and brings the discomfort of the morning prior into his lungs. Then, just when the kid thinks things can get worse, the butcher's boy holds out his arm.
Wait,
he says. Look. In a mud path, massive and unavoidable, sit hoofprints. The tracks are bigger than the boys themselves and are burrowed deep into the ground. There's about half a dozen of them on the road, bisecting the path of the creature through the forest. The mammoth beast is not walking the same route that the children are taking, but the tracks are fresh. Near the boys, the dents in the mud are filled up with brown, murky water. A couple steps ahead, the water is still seeping in.
Whatever it is,
the butcher's boy says, it's big. Yeah, the kid says, swallowing what little spit is left in his mouth.
Might be friendly.
Why would you say that?
I don't know. Might be.
Or it might want to eat us.
Or,
the butcher's boy says, his dumb smile eternal,
it might be friendly.
There's one last gulp left in the kid's water bottle. He takes it and then bends down to draw water from the beast's hoofprints.
What are you doing? That's mud. We'll find a real stream with real water, and then we'll use the tablets my dad gave me, and we'll drink as much as we want.
Messamel says, reassuring the kid.
Don't worry. How do you know? How do you know there's even a stream in this stupid forest? I just know,
the butcher's boy says, shrugging.
How? I don't know, he says. If we don't find a stream, we'll die.
Yeah, exactly.
But we won't die.
How do you know? The butcher's boy shrugs and smiles, and smacks his lips.
Things always work out, don't they?
The kid's fists tighten once more. Messamel's carefree attitude, that inability to understand the danger they are in, they send tendrils of hot, fiery rage up the child's arms. He knows his fists won't do any damage, and that fighting the boy won't bring them any closer to water, yet the kid's rage leaves no room for knowledge.
Did you hear that?
The butcher's boy asks, just as the kid gets ready to hit him. Hear what? The kid asks, his fists loosening ever so slightly. The forest sits in silence, and the kid hears nothing, but the Bernbarg has his ears raised.
You hear that, girl? You hear it?
Hear what? The kid asks again. The butcher's boy raises his finger to his lips. The trio listens intently to the melody of the forest. At first, no notable sound presents itself. At first, the kid almost goes back to the original plan of hitting his traveling companion. But then, somewhere in the bushes beyond, the kid hears it. Ribbit.
Go get it, Rexina, go get it.
The hound dashes into the bushes like a canine cannonball. The butcher's boy follows close behind.
"A frog!" he yells. "If there's a frog, there's water."
Mr. jumps off the path into the bushes below. In the trees above, the Zaprat still sits and stares at the kid, but the boy feels alone. He doesn't feel good going off the path, but the fear of dying without witness drives his feet. The twigs cut and pull at the boy's clothes. The ground is uneven and dangerous, and he almost falls. When he emerges out of the shrubbery, however, a flash of joy wipes away his headache and pain. Like an oasis in a desert of green, a sparkling pond of water and fish lays beyond the bushes. In front of the boy, bright-eyed and wagging its tail, sits Messimil's burnbark. A frog squirms in the hybrid's jowls. It does not squirm long, for the hound eats it.
"See?" the butcher's boy says. "I told you we would find water."
And that wraps up this chapter of Hybrid Master. Don't miss the next one. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and drop hybrid in the comments to help this story ride the algorithmic waves. If you want instant access to all chapters, swing by patreon.com/MikeJLanger or become a channel member. You'll get early access to all episodes and your name in the credits. Huge thanks to the patrons for keeping the series alive. Bob Konderg, C.R. Iptid, Christopher Brunda, Daniel Wengel, Dante Kincaid, Mr. Creepypasta, Quiet Pills, and Koos. Stay safe, stay sane, and I'll see you in the next one.